Good morning. On your screen is a live view of Starship as it awaits its second attempt at our first ever integrated flight test from Starbase, Texas. If all goes well, we hope to see our Starship spacecraft and Super Heavy booster, which we collectively call Starship, lift off together for the first time in exactly 33 minutes from now. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a space operations engineer here at SpaceX. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that we stood down from our initial launch attempt on Monday, and that was due to a frozen pressurization valve on the Super Heavy booster.
SpaceX teams investigated the issue and determined that this valve had some moisture in it, which caused the valve to freeze up when we were loading super chilled liquid oxygen into the booster.
Now, these valves are super important because we actually need a pressurant to go back into the tank as we consume propellant, and we actually use a pressurant that comes from the Raptor engines. It's heated down there and then put back in the tank. And so a frozen valve there would be a problem during the launch.
Yeah, and that's important. You can think of it like drinking out of a thin plastic water bottle. If you're chugging that water, it crinkles if you don't let air back into it. So we use that hot exhaust gas from the Raptor engines to refill that consumed volume as propellant is depleted. So it was a great find by the countdown, and that's why we have a countdown, is to allow us to find those issues prior to liftoff. So all of that being said, our teams learned a lot over the last 48 hours, and we are ready to give it another go. As many of you know, Starship is the latest and largest vehicle developed to date by SpaceX. It will be the world's most powerful launch vehicle once fully developed and have twice the thrust of the Saturn V rocket. But the key breakthrough with Starship is that it will be fully reusable and capable of carrying up to 150 metric tons of payload to orbit in a reusable configuration and up to 250 metric tons when expendable.
Now, for context, Falcon 9 is only partially reusable. We recovered the largest part of the rocket, that's called the first stage, but we don't recover the second stage. And Falcon 9's heaviest payload to date is just over 17 metric tons. So 150 to 250 metric tons on Starship is an order of magnitude greater in terms of the payload capacity. Now, for today's test, we will be the first of many as we work towards transitioning Starship from a developmental into an operational program. And the primary objective today is to gather as much data as we can around the fully integrated vehicle. Now, while we have flown the Starship spacecraft in the past, it is going to be the first attempt of Super Heavy and the first opportunity for us to validate how the two vehicles operate together.
We are so excited for this. The purposes for today's flight, we will consider any data received that helps inform and improve future builds of Starship as a success. From a milestone standpoint, our main goal is to clear the pad. Every milestone beyond that is a bonus. The further we fly, the more data we can collect.
Now, if it does all go well, then we'll expect the Super Heavy to light up its 33 Raptor engines at the base of the vehicle and lift off, clear the pad away down from Starbase, in Starbase, Texas. And then it'll go into ascent. About 3 minutes into its ascent, we're going to expect to see Super Heavy separate from the Starship. It'll perform a flip maneuver, and then it'll execute a boost back burn, and we're going to be targeting a hard landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And while that's happening, we hope to see Starship's 6 second stage engines ignite and watch as Starship coasts for about an hour at altitudes ranging between 150 and 250 kilometers before re-entering Earth's atmosphere and make its own hard landing in the Pacific Ocean about 250-ish kilometers offshore. Now, we are not really expecting many camera views after separation. That is to say, if we even make it that far. But we do promise that whatever views we do have, we will bring them to you live.
Yep. We have a couple of ground stations along the way. So if we are able to get good telemetry, assuming we make it that far into the ascent, then of course those will be available on the stream. And also worth mentioning today, like the whole just getting the vehicle off the pad is a complex endeavor. We are going to be trying to reduce complexity by attempting those hard water landings instead of trying a normal landing like you're used to on Falcon 9.
Exactly. We are not attempting to recover these vehicles. So yeah, hard landings in store for both.
Now, in a little bit, we'll take a closer look at the vehicle and the launch pad. But first, the teams have been doing a tremendous amount of work over the last few months. In fact, there's a great shot of our Hawthorne team up here bright and early to watch the launch. Teams have been prepping really for the last few days, especially to try to get in today's launch attempt.
And here you can see a live view of the South Padre Amphitheater, where both SpaceX employees, friends and family, and members of the public are gathering to watch Starship lift off. And we can see the crowds are gathering there as well. And of course, we want to give a shout out to the SpaceX team. You see them there on screen, members of our launch command, our Star Command Center. That is our Star-based Launch Control Center.
Yep, those are the operators today who are going to be reviewing all the data and, of course, giving us the go, no-go poll, checking the status to try to get in today's launch attempt just around 27 minutes from now.
And one thing I do want to mention, I misspoke. It's not the South Padre Amphitheater. It's the Cameron County Amphitheater.
Now, the entire Starship structure on your screen is made from stainless steel. When it's stacked, it stands about 120 meters tall. It's about 9 meters around. And we have this awesome video that shows you just how big that is. You can see one of our technicians there doing some final prep work in advance of today's test. And man, there's the 120-meter monster.
The person just keeps getting smaller and smaller. Now, just like Falcon 9, Starship has 2 stages, which we'll talk more about those in a minute. In addition to those 2 stages, Starship actually has a 3rd stage, which we call Stage 0. It consists of all the launch pad infrastructure built around the rocket, as you can see there on your screen, and it's truly an engineering feat in its own right.
Yeah, we've got a great shot there of the various different components of it. The pad, the infrastructure, all that is required to get into filling the tanks. Now, let's talk about the Super Heavy. Its name says everything. It's super, it's heavy, it's super heavy. When it's operational, it'll be responsible for providing the power to escape that mighty gravitational pull of Earth that we've got here and take Starship into orbit.
The booster itself stands about 70 meters tall and is roughly the same height as a fully integrated Falcon 9, which is just so crazy to me. But this super heavy booster has a diameter roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much larger engines. We have a beautiful view here. This is one of my favorite views that we're going to get today. Those are our 33 Raptor engines at the base of the super heavy booster.
Yep, and you can see they're in a couple of different rings here. So we've got the outer ring of 20 static engines. They're going to be providing a huge amount of thrust today to lift off the entire stack. But then we've got the 13 gimbaling engines in the middle, and they're going to be providing the tilt maneuvers and also helping to reorient the booster as it comes back later in today's flight.
Yeah, and when we say gimbal, it's basically tilting or almost wiggling the engines a few degrees and in either direction to allow the booster to steer itself, just as you said, Shiva.
And we'll get some great shots later of actually a wiggle test that we perform ahead of liftoff, just to make sure that all of those engines are able to control their full range of control authority.
One thing to note, those Raptor engines are completely designed and manufactured in-house. They are, as many of you know that have been following along, they are a reusable methane oxygen staged combustion type engine. So it's a lot of words there. And ultimately, that staged combustion means that we combust the propellant in stages that we kind of pre-combust them in a pre-burner, and by doing so, it allows the engine to be more efficient, i.e. more powerful.
Yeah. Now, like Falcon 9, the Super Heavy has 4 grid fins to assist with orienting itself in its return back to Earth. We got a shot of them there beneath the Starship's aft flaps. Now, as we talked about earlier, Super Heavy is not going to be attempting a land landing today, but with this flight test, we're still trying to get as much data as we can. We're focusing on the fundamental systems and operations, so that's the liftoff portion, but we are going to try to get some data on how the fins work and for that water landing that Super Heavy is going to be making after ascent.
I love that great view of the fins there. Now, Starship, or the spacecraft, is the second stage, and it makes up the top portion of the vehicle. It's designed for carrying passengers and cargo to Earth orbit and beyond. It stands about 50 meters tall, which is a little taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's comprised of 6 Raptor engines, 3 sea level and 3 vacuum engines, which are optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. And they provide a maximum of 258,000 tons of thrust in vacuum. Spacecraft is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude, which you can see those 2